टोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पैपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि नः श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वैदैः साङ्गपदः क्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः Thank you.
ॐ नारायणः परो व्यक्तात् अण्डमव्ययसम्भवम् अण्डस्यान्तस्त्विमे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपा च मेदिनी ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 Chapter 2, verse 20. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे One more time. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे This is the second of the quotations from the Kathopanishad. Earlier, I talked about how there are two quotations that Lord Krishna takes directly from the Kathopanishad to reveal the nature of the Atma. And so the first one was 2:19, chapter 2, the 19th verse, the one that came just before this. And that also had a lot of, almost lifted verbatim. And that in the Bhagavad Gita, it read, Ya enam vetti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tau na bijanitaha na ayam hanti na hanyate. And the Kathopanishad verse is Hanta chen manyate hantum hataschen manyate hatam ubhau tau na vijanitah nayam hanti na hanyate. Little bit of difference in the first line, but then the second line is exactly the same. And then this verse also that we just chanted has a similar verse in the Kathopanishad 1 to 18. This is the mantra from the Kathopanishad. न जायते म्रियते वा विपश्चित् नायं कुतश्चिन्न बभूव कश्चित् अजो नित्यश्शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. Here too, the second line is same, exactly the same, identical. And then the first line, there is a little bit of a difference, but you can see that both these verses have been taken from the Kathopanishad. And so why these, why these verses are quoted by the Lord? Because to show that the purpose of the Gita Shastra is nivritti from shoka and moha. Shoka is sorrow, moha is delusion, both of which are the cause of samsara. And Gita is not a pravartaka shastra, it is not trying to make you do something. And that is, so it is nivrityatmakam. This shastram, Gita Shastra, is nivrityatmaka. Not it is not pravartaka. It's not asking you or enjoining you to do things. And in order to make this obvious, the nature of the Atma is revealed with the help of these two mantras from the Kathopanishad. So this one, 20, the verse 20 is in Trishtup meter. Generally, 2 meters are there in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Mahabharata, mostly Anushtup. Anushtup is what we have been chanting so far. Trishtup we have seen already. In the beginning of the second chapter, we had few, 2 or 3 verses in the Trishtup meter. Shishyaste ham shadhi mam tvam prapannam. Like that, Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshamaphi haloke. This has to be chanted a little differently, because otherwise the syllables will not fit in this particular, in the Anushtup chanda. And so therefore this is the Trishtup. And then this Trishtup, I think 11 syllables and 4 padas arranged in a particular way. And then they have, in the Bhagavad Gita, some important verses are in this meter. Why? Because the person, the Gita is very comforting. And when one is comforted, what happens? What comes? Sleep comes. Yeah, sleep comes immediately because it's so nice. And the tune also is very nice. Veda Vinashinam Nityam. La 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 la. So one feels like nodding off. And so therefore, this is a device. This is an acoustic device to wake up the person from a sense of complacency when important points are being made. And then when there is Vishwarupa Darshana, when Bhagavan shows his form, in fact, almost the entire, what is that called? The entire chapter, 11th chapter, is in this particular meter, almost the whole chapter. So that means no sleeping. And so this is a very nice, very nice to chant this. And it has a way of bringing the attention back. So now let us see the meaning. What is the meaning? Na jayate is not born. What is not born? Huh? What is not born?
Atma.
Atma. Very good. So we know that what we are discussing right now is Atma. So Atma is not born. And then Namriyate is not subject to death, does not die. When Kadachit, at any time. And then Na ayam, not indeed this Atma. Ayam here refers to Atma. And then Bhutva abhavita. Bhutva abhavita means nor does it become, come into being, Bhutva, after having come into being, abhavita. So that means abhavita means it has become non-existent. Nayam bhutva abhavita. So meaning having come into being, it doesn't become non-existent. When, again means in any other cycle, in any other iteration. Then what else? Ajaha. Why the hetu is given in the second line? Because it is ajaha, unborn. Aja also means goat. Okay. Yeah. So we have to decide now, based on the context, whether Atma is being revealed as a goat or whether it is unborn. So ajaha, unborn. And because it is unborn, nityaha, unchanging, it is always the same, eternal, never coming to an end. Shashvataha, ever fresh, everlasting. Puranaha. Puranaha means that which is ancient and that which is fresh, current, new. And Adi Shankara will explain that when we see the explanation of this verse. So that which is at once ancient and new, because it is timeless, because it is limitless, because it's not subject to time, it was always there and it will continue to be there and it is ever, ever fresh. No need to ever refrigerate the Atma because it is not subject to wilting, it is not subject to destruction. And that is pointed out in the end. Nahanyate is not destroyed, is not slain. When hanyamane sharire, when the body is killed, the Atma is not killed. So obviously, this is a continuation from the previous verse because the last part, hanyate na hanyate hanyamane sharire, is to connect it to the previous verse, which was all which, as we saw, was to give a connection. We saw that the previous verse is basically asking us to understand that the Atma is neither the doer nor the done, not done in by other people's doings. If Atma is the doer, then it should feel very guilty. Oh, I stepped on something. Oh, I killed something. Oh, I'm a subject to a lot of papa. No, it doesn't have those kinds of complexes. Then it is not the doer. So the first case, the nominative case, as the agent is denied for the Atma because there is nothing there. There is the Atma is not an agent of action. Oh, then it becomes a sitting duck for other people to act on it. No, it is not subject to being an actor. Neither is it subject to being destroyed by other people's actions. It's neither the doer nor the done in. This we saw earlier. And the reason why and how to understand the Atma is given now here. So this is what it is. And so let us look at the Bhashya because it will explain everything very clearly. Na jayate, na utpadyate. Janilakshana vastu vikriya na atmanah vidyate. Ityarthaha. Namriyate va. And so this is very beautiful. This, najayate namriyate is, the book ends of two very, what is called bhava vikaras. Bhava vikaras or shad vikaras means that there are certain things, certain universal changes from birth to death that every organism and everything in the universe undergoes. As long as it is there in this Jagat, everything is subject to these bhava vikaras. And we have seen them in other contexts, but just to revise, what are these bhava vikaras? Number one, jayate, is born. And if you're talking about a puppy, that also is subject to birth. If you're talking about a human child, that is also subject to birth. And if you're talking about something completely inanimate, like a ghata, pot, that is also has a birthday. Yeah, happy birthday, ghata. Happy birthday, pot, you can say. And so, because it was not there before, and now it has a certain being. So, this is the first vikara. Then the second vikara is what? Jayate asti. Asti means it survives birth, which is a big deal. That's why the first birthday of a child is done with great pomp. Because the first year is very dangerous. Anything could happen. Sudden death, in the cradle, and so many things. So the first year very vulnerable and delicate, and so the first birthday of the child is celebrated with great pomp in all traditions. So this jayate and then asti. Asti means survives the trauma of the birth and all the other things. It's so vulnerable, helpless. It's tiny. It, especially the human baby, is not like a baby elephant. As soon as the elephant born is born, it gets stands up and follows the herd. And here, this baby is so helpless, the human baby. So then, this asti, and same thing, even with inanimate things, the pot is made and put in the oven, the kiln. And then when it comes out, sometimes the heat is not, it's not able to take the heat, or it was not properly, crafted. And then it's already cracked. It comes out as a crack pot. So this asti is, the asti is very important. Asti means it survives birth. That's the second modification, second vikara. The third modification is vardhate, upachiyate. It increases, it grows. Anybody who has had children, they know how many times they have to go shopping for clothes. And only last month we went. What happened? Well, you know, grown. The limbs have grown. The height is increased. The weight is increased. And so this increase is called vardhate. This is mostly for animate things. The pot doesn't vardhate. The pot is not subject to that. That vikara is, everything we cannot find in all the things. But mostly for animate things. You see the puppy and you see the kitten. It was tiny, it fit in the palm of your hand. And then now what? It has grown. Only difference is that non-human children, non-human young ones grow sideways. The dog grows longer, the cat grows longer this way. Tiryak. That's why the pashus are called tiryak, because they grow sideways rather than up, erect. And so this is the difference. But growth does take place. Vardhate. And then what? Viparinamate, number 4. Viparinamate means it is subject to certain changes. Suddenly, the growing boy or girl shoots up. Suddenly, the height increases. And, because they are becoming young adults, they are in the process of becoming young adults, capable of reproduction. And so, this is, they blossom in a certain way. So, that is called viparinamate. Oh, all this is sounding very good. Yeah, wait till the next one. And then the next one, the next change is apakshiyate. This is there for all things. This is there for human beings, and this is there also for the inanimate things and pashus, etc. Apakshiyate means there is a weakness, a dwindling of energy, strength. And then the person becomes three-legged, meaning have to have a cane in order to walk, or it needs to have what else? Hearing aid, needs to have glasses, needs to have so many props. And because the medical technology has advanced so much, By the time the person, if the person survives till 80 years old, none of the original parts are there. The knees have been replaced, the hips have been replaced. What else? The teeth, of course, have been replaced. Whether one is using dentures or implants, the replacement has taken place. And then what else? Then you can have everything without having that particular thing. Other than brain, almost all everything else is replaced just to keep the person going. Apakshiyate. And then afterwards, what? Ram Nam Satya hai Vinashyati. Vinashyati means the body is incapable of going on anymore. Yes, you can fill it with antioxidants. You can do all kinds of things. You can pump it with lots of medicines, supplements, vitamins. But, what? Then the obituary reads, passed away due to multi-organ failure. How did this multi-organ failure take place? Well, that is Bhagavan. That is what it is. Despite all the technology, despite everything, there comes a time where nothing works. Nothing works. And all the machines, dialysis onwards, the person is hooked up to has to be disconnected. Nothing works. And so this is vinashyati. These are the six bhava vikaras, that are set into motion soon after birth. That means what? The this what is we call in Hindi we say ulti ginti. The countdown has begun as soon as one is born. As soon as one is born, the countdown begins. That is why in the beginning of the second chapter, the Lord said that, gatasoon agatasumscha na anushocanti na anushocanti panditaha. Those who are wise do not grieve. Over what? Over that which is subject to, which is yet to die, and over that from which the breath has already departed. So Lord Krishna divides the people into two, dead and not yet to die. This is the reality. And so here it is pointed out that these six and very scary vikaras, many of them, especially apakshiyate, very scary vikara. And then it is, sometimes it is evident, even as one is growing, it is evident. So it is not just old age, but it just happens very, very, very slowly. And you may be able to tell yourself the the old 50 is really the new 40. You can tell yourself all you want. But this is some kind of a what is it called, positive thinking. This is some kind of a positive thinking in order to feel good, I suppose. No harm in that, but this is what it is. It's not that you may look 40, but the heart is 50 years old. The lungs are 50 years old. Kidneys are 50 years old. And you may feel healthy, but inside what is going on is something very different. And so this apakshaya takes place internally and erodes the body of strength, erodes the body of all kinds of feeling stable, etc., etc. And the apakshaya also includes the brain, the mind. So many things. I mean, you try to teach a child a language, it picks up like that. Immediately. It learns, it just has to see the adult speaking, and it speaks in grammatical sentences. Similarly, it can learn to write, to read. And now we get into the topic of consonants and these in the Sanskritam class. Okay, and then each time a new rule is taught, then we have to refer back to the previous room. Why? What happened? What happened? How? And then we have to refer back to we have to circle back to the previous rule. Because the mind also is subject, the brain also is subject to vinasha, subject to kshaya. Okay. And so here he says that na jayate na utpadyate janilakshana vastu vikriya na atmanah. So for the atma, the janilakshana, that the change, vikriya, the change characterized by birth is not there. Na vidyate ityarthah. And then in the same way, the something coming to an end, death is also denied for the Atma. And there is one va. Jayate mriyate va. Va means what? Va means or. But here Adi Shankara helpfully says va shabdah cha arthe. The va should be taken as cha. Cha means what? Cha means this, and. So there is neither birth nor death. So no birth and no death. And so it's not produced, and there is no modification called birth, neither is there a modification called death. Namriyate cha iti antya vinashalakshana vikriya pratishidhyate. So by the phrase namriyate, it does not die. Iti, in this manner, antya vinasha lakshana vikriya. The final change, antya means the final change, which is in the form of vinasha, vinashyati, this pratishidhyate is negated for the atma. So what do we know by the first pada? Najayate mriyate va. Then we know that the Atma is neither subject to death nor subject to birth. And who is this Atma? You. Okay, yeah. You have to own this up and say, I am never born and nor am I ever subject to death. Then we have a word kadachit. कदाचित् शब्दः सर्वविक्रिया प्रतिषेधैः सम्बध्यते न कदाचित् जायते न कदाचित् म्रियते इति एवम्. So the kadachit, where will it go? Na jayate mriyate va kadachit. So kadachit means at any time. Where should it go? Should it go with na jayate kadachit or na mriyate kadachit? Adi Shankara says it should apply to both. That is why it is in the end. This is a maxim called Dehali Deepanyaya. Dehali Deepanyaya means in between two houses there is a compound wall. And on Diwali day, the owner of one of the houses puts a lovely lamp on the compound in between the two houses. Where will the lamp shed the light? In which compound will the lamp shed the light? Both of them. That is why, so what is the lamp here? The word kadachit is the lamp. The word kadachit is the lamp that shines on najayate and namriyate. And so kadachit means at any time, and therefore sarva vikriya pratishedhaihi sambadhyate. Meaning by using the word kadachit, with regard to birth and death, it has the subtle effect, Adi Shankara says, with the total negation of all sorts of modification for the Atma. So therefore we should say, na kadachit jayate, na kadachit mriyate. Okay? Yeah. Then further, यस्माद् अयम् आत्मा भूत्वा भवनक्रियायाम् अनुभूय पश्चाद् अभविता भावम् अगन्ता न भूयः पुनः तस्मान् न म्रियते. So yasmat Because, tasmat here means because. Because the Atma is bhutva, means having come into, because this I having come into existence, meaning what? Bhavana kriyam anubhuya, having experienced bhavana kriya, meaning having existed, having experienced coming to existence, paschat, later at some other given time, bhavitru. So abhavita means bhavam aganta. It does not cease to be. Suddenly, having once existed does not become non-existent later on. So what do we call this condition? If supposing you are referring to a person, oh, they had existed, and then having come to existence, now they are no longer there. That means it's dead. So that's why it is talked about here as as it is. That's what in the world, and he's going to point this out later in the next line. So that's why it is spelled out. It's not enough to say it is not born and it does not die, because those are two vikriyas, those are two bhava vikaras. And then by mentioning the two, they are like bookends to include all the bhava vikaras, all the vikaras in between. Asti, vardhate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, all of them are in between. This is like a sandwich. But still, if you say bhava, if you say najayate, then it could be, you can say, okay, birth is not there for the Atma, but then maybe it was already born, and then maybe somehow it had come into existence, and then now it is no longer there. Or it wasn't there before, and now it is there. Both those are denied. Very, very beautiful here. And then bhavam aganta. So therefore, bhavam aganta means suddenly it did not disappear. This is important to say because I experience the I is here, but then maybe at a future date it will go away. Or maybe it wasn't there and suddenly it came into being somehow when I was not looking. That is not there. That is not there at all. So bhavana kriyam anubhuya paschat abhavita na bhuyah punah tasman namriyate. So therefore it is said to not be subject to death. Why? Because it didn't come into being and it did not go away at any time. And then he explains this further. Yo hi bhutva na bhavita samriyate iti uchyate loke. Because in the world, whatever becomes non-existent after first coming into being is said to be dead. So here, that is all denied for the I. And the lesson is to become familiar with this I. This is the I one has to become familiar with. But instead, what is the I we are familiar with? We are familiar with the I that is born. Happy birthday to me. Many happy returns. May I keep coming back, life after life. Many happy returns. Oh dear Jiva. We are very familiar with that. In fact, we get very outraged if somebody does not wish happy birthday. How dare they? And then suppose if they say, well, you've been studying Bhagavad Gita, so I thought you are over it. You get even angrier. How dare you? How could you miss my birthday? Okay, no present, not even a present, fine, but at least a wish. At least a text, at least a phone call, if not an email, something. How could you let my birthday pass? But didn't you just do verse 2 to chapter 2, verse 20? Didn't you just do that? Yeah, don't argue. You get even more angry. So this is the I that one is very familiar with. Very, very familiar with this I that is subject to birth. Therefore, the birthday is planned. And then people want to celebrate, and the celebrations are getting very, very, very complicated. And the celebration starts pre-birth. Pre-birth means what? So there's already in the West there are some what is that called? Some parties. Parties given. Oh, baby shower? No, no, no. That is all passe. That's all a thing of the past. Some gender parties. Will reveal the baby, the gender of the baby. Thankfully, in India, this gender revelation is outlawed. Because of all this, discrimination against females, and so therefore you don't know what you're having till you have had it, and then it is too late to give it back. Okay, so this is how it is. But in the West, so the gender reveal party, and then this blue color associated with one gender and the other one associated with pink color. And then what? And then suddenly there will be some fireworks, and then there will be some blue fireworks, and everybody claps, or there will be pink fireworks. And then in the process of the fireworks, all the trees in the area catch fire. This has all happened. It's all in the news, and people have to pay a hefty fine because they started a fire. Or it is hidden in some cake. The icing will be white, but when you cut into it, it will be either pink or blue. So even before the birth, it is celebrated. Oh, it's being born, it's being born. Even in India, as soon as birth is there, laddus, balls of calories. Okay, laddu means caloric ball. Laddus are distributed, and then what else? Sweets are distributed, and the birth is celebrated, celebrated, celebrated. And then what? Then all the changes are also celebrated up till apakshiyate, not including. Okay, so asti celebrated, that's the first birthday, celebrated with great pomp. And then vardhate, oh, there are certain milestones. The child is now 3 feet, 2 feet. And then what else? Oh, the child has learned how to do this, how to do that. And in the West, it is celebrated, certain milestones are celebrated. And even, what is that? Pre kindergarten. Pre KG also has graduation in the West. I find that very cute, but it's very interesting that there is graduation. Graduation from what? You've not even gone to school. This is just pre KG. No, no, no. We have to celebrate. So these are all markers which the topic that we are discussing is, this is the I that one is very comfortable with. We are socialized to get to know this I and to firmly live in the I that is constantly changing. Oh, but the I is changing, I is not changing. The ahankara, the I notion associate is taught by the family, by the people in the society. It is deliberately and consciously socialized to identify with everything changing. And then it cries because everything is changing all the time. Go figure. This is the problem. This is a very, very big problem. And so what to do? So what to do here? That is why get familiar. Meet the I. Meet Atma. How to meet Atma? How to greet Atma? Greet the Atma. Meet the Atma. How to greet Atma? Will I handshake myself? Will I say hello? How are you? Is this what it's going to take? Kind of. Kind of. Because this socialization away from the I, that is the truth of oneself, has been deliberately made, the return also has to be deliberate. That is why meditation is such an important aid to get familiar with this I, because the I is not understood. So even after hearing this mantra, this from the Bhagavad Gita, this verse, which is so wonderful, one can go away just not having made a dent in one's thinking, in one's associations, in one's very being. So therefore, therefore what? Therefore, one has to become familiar with the I that is not born, that is not changing. So, what does it mean in practical terms? In practical terms, it means in getting to a place of quietude, just a few minutes every day, getting to a place of just being comfortable with the I without devices and desires. Devices means all these various handheld, palm held, from computer onwards, all kinds of things which are a doorway to more and more and more distraction and addiction. So, who are you without the devices? That's a very good question. And that's a question that is worth understanding. And then, who are you when the desires are not being fulfilled? Are you a raging, raving maniac? Or are you okay with a few desires not being fulfilled? Yeah, I'm okay, but I'm disappointed. That's okay. And when you watch the disappointment, you are no longer disappointed. You are the witness of disappointment. That is something which is very important to note. So, who are you without all these things, without all these props? No, I don't rely on devices, but I rely on people. Yeah, same thing. People are also props. Without such and such a person, I am not okay. And without such a person treating me in this way, it's not just the presence of another person, it's that person has to treat me in a particular way for me to be all right. This is the problem. This is the problem why verses like Najagate Mriyate Va Kadachit go into one ear. Oh, then go out the other. No. From that ear itself, they boomerang back to the guru. Yeah, they that's why the knowledge is safe with all the gurus. It doesn't even penetrate to go from one ear out the other. It just boomerangs back. Why? Because there is some kind of a resistance to not owning it up. There is a resistance to not, it's not the level of understanding. Understanding is there. Buddhi is there. It is open. It is hearing these blessed words, but it is resistant to walking that talk. It is resistant to living with the ahankara is resistant to living with its head held high, knowing that it is not subject to destruction. The truth of the I is not subject to destruction, is not subject to birth, not subject to any vikara. Vikara means changes. So we have dealt with celebratory changes. Now let us look at how the society deals with changes that are perceived as inimical to oneself. Oneself means to the body, mind, sense complex. First, there is denial. No, 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 it's not happening to me at all. People don't like to disclose any disease. Why? Because, my job will be affected. If people know I have this particular disease, then I may be bypassed for promotions, for merit increases, and all these things because this is a chronic disease. So things like multiple sclerosis, which is very treatable these days, and then things like that, or things like anything chronic, even diabetes, etc., etc. People hide because they want to believe that they because there is a stigma associated with certain diseases, and there is some fear that in this dog eat dog world they will not get ahead. But then here is an opportunity to get familiar with the I so much that it holds you good. It holds everybody good as the body ages. Because the body is aging, I am just in this body, not subject to aging. The body is like a hotel room. Sometimes your luck runs out and you get even though the hotel may be decent, you get a bad room. You open the water in the sink, open the tap in the sink, and it doesn't drain, it all fills up. and the bath water is just a trickle, and the room is all looking dilapidated. Much needed renovation has not yet been done in that particular wing in which you are staying. That is how the aging body is. Certain things don't work, and so certain things don't work at all. Certain things are out, on their way out. They have worn out their welcome. Literally, the knees are worn, the patience is wearing out, the mind is worn out, the body is wearing out. And so at that time, when apakshaya takes place, this knowledge, this dridha nishtha in this knowledge alone helps the person to not get scared, to not get frightened. Because this is just a hotel room. And what do you do in the hotel room? You check out. That's what you do. You check in and check out. So all that you can say is, okay, the checkout time is approaching. That's all. Checkout time is approaching means it'll be time to check out soon. And so there is no need to change the interior decoration. It's just when I'm trying to check out. There's no point. So therefore what? So therefore just be comfortable. Oh, should I not seek medical attention? Please seek medical attention. Please seek that. I'm not saying, you should just be sitting with the Bhagavad Gita and, on your lap and saying, I don't need medical attention. That's not the idea. The idea is be comfortable. We are talking of things that cannot be changed. If you can change something, please change. If you want to replace a few body parts, please replace. If you want to make sure everything is in tip top condition, please make sure. But we are talking of those things that cannot be helped, that seems to defy any kind of intervention. What are you going to do for those things? Those things you have to come to terms with them. And verses like this one help in that way. They help to walk the ahankara from attaching to the body mind sense complex as the final say over what is true, to get to know the atma, the I that is described in the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita as not subject to birth or death. Further, va shabdat na shabdat cha ayam atma abhutva bhavita va dehavat na bhuyah punah tasman na jayate. So, what is denoted by the syllables va and na? Va means or. And where is this or? The bhutva abhavita va na bhuyah. So, there is a va and there is a na in the first line. In fact, in the first line, there are two vas. One va we have taken care of. That the first va is actually an and then the second va and na, the reasons it is there are revealed right now. So what does he say? What is denoted by the nipatas, the syllables va and na, is that the Atma, unlike the body, does not come into being without existing earlier. Because that is also there in Punarjanma, etc. It was there earlier and now it has again come into being. That's why Punaha, Bhuyaha is used. So it doesn't come into being again after having existed earlier. Or, it doesn't do that. Or without existing earlier, it has come into being. No. Therefore, it is not subject to birth. Because he gives the reason. Yo hi abhutva bhavita sajayate iti uchyate. Na evam atma atah na jayate. Therefore, it is not born. Why? Because that which is not existing earlier but comes to being later on is regarded as born. See how clear and specific the Bhashya is. But not so with the I. Therefore, the I is unborn. The I is not subject to death. And therefore, yasmad evam tasmad ajah. Because it is not born, it is called unborn, ajah. Yasman namriyate tasman nityascha. And because it is doesn't die, it is called infinite, limitless, nitya, eternal. So you see here, the first line is all with the negative particle. In fact, it starts with the negative particle and there is a negative particle at the end of the first line also. So this is in keeping with the Upanishadic teaching pedagogy of neti neti, na iti na iti. So first we learn what the I is not. It is not subject to death. It is not subject to birth or any of the modifications in between. It is not subject to. And then later on, in the second line, iti iti, then if it is not this, not this, not this, then what is it? If you don't describe what it is, if you don't define what the Atma is, then people can go away with the wrong idea. What is the wrong idea? Atma doesn't exist. Shunya. That's why najayate. It's a big zero. And that's why namriyate. Therefore, it's not subject to birth. Therefore, it is not subject to there. Why? Because it is non existent. The non existent is not subject to birth, neither does the non existent die, and the non existent does not grow old or get, need crutches, etc., etc. So, this one must not come into this spell of thinking that the Atma doesn't exist, because there are many schools of thought, Shunyavada, etc., are there. And so, therefore, to negate that and to say that this I, which is ever experienced, is never subject to birth and death, it is now described positively here in the second line. So, ajaha means unborn, it is not subject to birth. There was never a time it was not. There is never a time it is not going to be. Nityaha. Eternal, eternal means limitless, time-wise limitless. Ajaha and Nityaha, the limitations of time are negated. And so therefore it is unborn, it is, and what is this is? That isness of the Atma is not, is unchanging, infinite, limitless. And then the word Shashvataha means everlasting, always the same. Let's see what he says about Shashvataha. And then he has a little paragraph here. Yadyapi adyantayoho vikriyayoho pratishedhe sarvaha vikriyaha pratisiddhaha bhavanti. तथापि मध्यम भाविनीनां विक्रियाणां स्वशब्दैः एव तदर्थैः प्रतिषेधः कर्तव्यः. So yadyapi, although adi and anta, so adyantayoho, although the modifications such as the beginning and the end, modifications vikriyayoho, although for the modifications of beginning and end, they have been denied. And in their denial, in their negation, sarvaha vikriyaha pratisiddhaha santah. So, when you deny the beginning and end, then you are denying everything that comes in between naturally. So all the modifications are negated with the first modification and the second modification, the last modification being negated. Meaning what? So if something is not subject to birth, how will it grow up? How will it change? How will it blossom? And if it's not subject to death, how will it change and how will it, all the modifications are denied when you take these bookends. The first one and the last one are, prohibited. So for the Atma and negated. So everything is negated. Yadyapi, then tathapi, although it's already negated, tathapi madhyama bhavininam vikriyanam. The modifications occurring in the middle. Swashabdaihi. Swashabdaihi means in the own words. Swashabdaihi eva tadarthaihi pratishedha kartavyah iti. The Lord thinks that it is important in using specific words to deny or negate for the Atma all these other Madhyama Bhavininam Vikriyanam. That these for these modifications occurring in the middle. What are they? Asti, Vardhate, Viparinamate, Apakshiyate. These four modifications survives birth and grows up and blossoms and then starts to decline. These four middle occurring what is that, vikriyas have also need to be negated. Therefore, need to be negated. Pratishedha kartavyah iti अनुक्तानामपि यौवनादि समस्तविक्रियाणां प्रतिषेधः यथा स्यात् इति आह शाश्वत शाश्वतः इत्यादिना. So the things occurring in the middle, like the youth stage, etc. All these transformations, the middle transformations, like youth, etc., which occur in between the birth and death, they have not been particularly mentioned. And so, by the word Shashvata, they have been taken care of. Why? Shashvata means that which is always the same, that which is always the same. And that's what he talks about here. Shashvatah iti apakshaya lakshana vikriya pratishiddhyete. And not only youth, but also this apakshaya. This apakshaya lakshana means that modification characterized by deterioration. Pratishiddhyete. Pratishidyate. Yeah, not there are not two. There's only one here. So apakshaya. So because we have already seen the viparinamate, so that was also so Shashvata does two things. One is it takes care of the modifications of viparinamate, youth, etc. And then the other vikriya, apakshaya lakshana vikriya, the modification that is in the form of old age, disease, and deterioration of the body is also negated. Shashvat bhavah, shashvatah. That which is everlasting, that which undergoes, that which exists forever. Shashvat means, which is never subject to destruction. Na apakshiyate swarupena. By itself, it does not self destruct, it does not come to any kind of a grief, any kind of a, what is that called, changes, deteriorating changes. Why? Niravayavatvat. Two reasons are given. Niravayavatvat. Because only when something has parts, it is subject to deterioration. That's why when you go to the doctor, they'll say, okay, your heart can function better. It's not functioning very well. It is skipping a few beats here and there. Or your lung function is compromised. Why? Because these are all avayavas. The heart is avayava, lung is avayava, everything is avayava. Avayava, usually one is used to thinking of as hands and legs. Avayava. No, the limbs. No, that's not all. That's not the only thing avayava. All these things, all the organs are avayavas. So, Atma, the heart cannot go because it is heartless. Yeah, literally, okay, not figuratively. So, Atma is heartless, lungless, and bodiless. And so, what can go wrong? So, things can go wrong. This apakshaya is very much dependent upon parts going wrong. Like even in a car, an old car, what happens? The old car means you have a lot of karma. Okay, yeah, so that is what it is. So an old car, you take it, you have to keep on taking it to the mechanic. And then they say, okay, this needs to be replaced. Oh, that belt has gone. And oh, but I just replaced it. Never mind, it has gone again. And then, oh, this is leaking. That is, talking. This one is not doing well. And so the same thing. So can you have a partless car? You can't. Even Elon Musk cannot come up with a partless car. Everything, all these parts are there. And so, as long as there are parts, that's why it's called part, because it's subject to falling apart. As long as there are parts, it's subject to falling apart. That's why it is called apakshaya lakshana. So, this apakshaya lakshana is not there. Reason number one, niravayavatvat, because it is not subject to having parts. And then, okay, it doesn't have parts, but is it a big blob sitting somewhere that will slowly, like a ball of ice, like what is that in these, these fancy parties? They have this, what is that called? Ice sculpture. And then, they'll put it in the center near some salads and something like that, so that people can look and admire very nicely carved ice sculpture. And then what, it is dripping onto all the things, the items kept underneath. And then if the party lasts too long, then you find that there is no more ice, there's only a puddle. Okay, so this is, so maybe it's like a blob of ice or a blob of snow when it snows. And then what, and then slowly it will just go. No. Next reason, nirgunatvat. It has no form. It has no form. So niravayatvat, no body parts, no parts. So if there are no parts, no falling apart. It is no form. If it's not even sitting like a blob somewhere, a blob of slime. No, it is not that. Because it doesn't, it is formless. Because it is not formless. Na api gunakshayena apakshayah. So therefore, gunakshayena apakshaya is not there. Gunakshayena apakshaya means because the quality of something deteriorates, then apakshaya takes place. The quality of something deteriorates means like the quality of some movement, somebody's movement. The walking is affected because there is some calcification in the joints, or there is some problem in the vertebrae. So the movement quality is affected. So the quality cannot be affected because there is no vertebrae to begin with. This is formless, nameless I that cannot be affected by anything by itself, cannot be attacked by anything other than itself, because there is nothing other than itself, nor can it self destruct. And so that is the idea. Little more is there before he concludes. We'll see that next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Amma.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed
Thank you,
it a lot.
Swamiji. Thank you.
I'm
Okay.
happy. It's all Guru's grace. It's really all Guru's grace. It
Thank
says
you.
Abhavam Ganta.
Thank you.
In one, I'll look it up, Meenal. I'll address it next time. Abhavam Ganta. I'll look it up. All right, yeah. I'll look it up and let you know. Oh,